Welcome to the Council of Moms. I'm Lisa Valentine Clark. I am a widowed mother of 5. I have most of my kids out of the home. I have 1.5 kids, and how do you have a half of kid live home? He's gone all the time. That's how.
Yeah,
I think it technically still lives with me. And that's the phase of motherhood that I'm in. And I love hosting the Lisa Show, doing podcasts, doing fun creative projects with my friends, some acting and voiceover work. I love it. And I love doing the Council of Moms. And here today on this particular council is
Heather Frazier, and I have 4 kids, 2 adult and 2 teen. And because it was so rough with my first 2, I decided to become a coach, and I help parents with their teens because that is such a tricky time. And there's so much unnecessary pain and suffering. And that has brought me full circle in my love of creating. I used to create with scrapbooks and cooking, and now I create with my own podcast. And I wrote 2 books this year and creating good connections with parents and kids.
Love it.
Wow.
I'm Melanie Call, and I have 3 children, 5, 2, and 12, and I've been married for 15 years, and I am on a hero's journey right now, using the power of my voice and doing civil advocacy work for working parents, caregivers, and moms.
Love it.
Yeah, so good.
Wow. I don't know how to follow that. That's heroic. I'm Whitney Call, and I'm a writer, comedian, actor. I've got 3 boys, and I'm trying to bring as much estrogen as I can into my house, and just working out, my own soul journey and figuring out, what do I want the next 70 years to look like? Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah. I love it. We're all,
Fair.
in this together. That's what the great thing is. Once you're in the Council of Moms, you're always in the Council of Moms. And we have listener questions this time. So I'm going to ask you a question, and we're going to see what we can do to help each other out and share a little vulnerability, right? I love this. This is from Sophie in Surprise, Arizona.
Ooh.
For years, I've been fully consumed by being a full-time parent, and I've barely spent any time on my own relationships outside of taking care of my kids. Now my kids are a little older, and I'm getting some of my time back, but I'm realizing that it's been 15 years since I had to make a new friend. How do people meet people? I would love to make my own council of moms, or even just a council of friends who may or may not be moms, but I don't know where to start. I love this from Sophie. Motherhood can be all-consuming. We all have different experiences with that, and sometimes time and distance. I mean, there's so many different factors that sort of bring you in and out of social circles. So for Sophie, how do you do it? What's your advice?
For Sophie, I can resonate with this question a lot because it is hard to make friendships when you get older. And so one thing I found that worked for me was volunteering. So I could be, finding a cause or a social activist issue that resonates with me. And then you'll find like-minded people and friends, you just making friends in that particular group. And so that's one way to make friends.
It's rare, I think, at this age that we make friends through proximity. Because we don't have to go to school with someone. We don't have to, and so I think it makes sense if you're joining a cause, then by, default, your friends by proximity are going to also be sharing a lot of your interests. I think that makes sense.
Right. Especially causes like cancer, and you can find people who have similar stories or backgrounds as you. Even art. I know I have a friend that I made, just showing up to a model casting. And I was like, I don't want to model, but I want to help with the production of your show.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
very
awesome.
cool.
that.
And I was
you put
bold
yourself
and
out there.
fearless. It's kind of, you do it. But I felt well, if it's that important to me, I'm going to really put myself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, I totally feel for Sophie. Just like these ladies, it's so relatable because so many of my clients, their kids are teenagers now. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not, but teenagers don't need their parents anymore.
Tell me more. tell me more about this phase.
Yes, it's a fun time
Yeah.
when they're like, the toddler, I do, and they don't want you to buckle them. Well, there's also that stage of teenagerdom where we're stupid, we don't know anything, and they don't want to spend time with us, to varying degrees.
Sure.
And so most of my clients are in the middle of an identity crisis because their identity was tied to those 15 years of raising kids. And who are they without their kids needing them? So, Sophie, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. Every other woman, just look around, throw a stone in any direction, and you're going to hit a woman who needs a friend.
Yeah.
It's like the vulnerability of saying, do you want to be my friend?
Yeah, I lean into that.
Yeah.
When I was thinking about this question, I like the romance of friendship. I like to court friends and just like not very subtly and be like, do you want to be my best friend? Are we best friends now? And sometimes that can turn people off.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes it's exactly what they want to hear.
Exactly.
So
You'll
you
find
never
your
know
people.
until you do.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when I moved
Trial
to
and
England
error.
and I didn't know anybody. And it got dark at 3:30 when the kids got, I had little kids and I was like, I need friends because I'm such an extrovert. And I saw this woman and I stalked her. We went to all the same play groups, and everything. And I sat next to her and I was just trying to get to know her. And, I have this thick American accent. She's like, oh, yeah, I moved to this same town the same day. And I go, oh, samesies, do you want to be my new best friend? And I did say that. And I kind of was joking, but I kind of wasn't.
We're not ever joking.
I
when we
never
joke
really
that way.
joking. And it's so not an English thing to do. It was not like, and she looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, you are right. I can see in your eyes that you're judging me. And I just want you to know that you're right for the assessment that is going through your head.
And it
But
would be
are
so
you
fun.
in?
Yeah.
Right. Let's just get past that
still.
part.
Right.
And we became friends and we were total opposites and we're still friends today.
I love that.
I am a real proponent of take that risk.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just be like, you look interesting. We look like we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Should we hang?
Yeah.
Show who you really are, because then
Yeah.
if they don't like you, it's an immediate, okay, next.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing,
okay.
because I'm not for
Right.
everyone. We're not for everyone.
We
not
cannot
for
be best
everyone.
friends with the world.
I mean,
So
we have
just
to
sit
have
down.
like a certain set of requirements too, especially when you have young children. It's like, hey, you know what? I can only go to Starbucks. And if you're okay with hanging out in the car
Yeah.
and chatting for like an hour, just going through
Yes.
up and down the canyon, we could totally do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah.
I think it also takes an amount of self-belief to recognize, I don't have to have everyone like me. And so, when I'm wanting to make friends, I also want to make sure that, they want to be my friend, and it's okay if they don't. But I think that vulnerability of putting yourself out there, whether it is in, hey, I really want friendship. Do you want to be my friend? Chances are, people on the other side are feeling the same way. I mean, we all are experiencing this, how do we make friends as adults? And so
Right.
I think there's plenty of other things in our lives we can connect over too. And I don't know, we were just talking, outside about how it's hard sometimes to make small talk. And for me, it's because it's I don't want to know, how are you doing? Fine. Okay. Like that. It's kind of,
Uh-huh.
it's just getting it makes
It's
my
so
anxiety go
annoying.
up. And it's just
Yeah.
do I sound weird when I'm making this talk that we all are supposed to make? So I feel like sometimes I just and I'm like, hey, so this is what I'm going through right now.
You are so my type of person.
I love
we're
that.
all
though.
that
cut
type
the
of
social
person,
dance
right?
that we're supposed to do, and
Yeah.
actually, let's just see if we connect.
What a relief to be hey, is this
Yeah.
kind of awkward? Why don't we just chat about something that we're really
Right.
going through right
Like,
now?
I
Let me tell you-
showered today.
Right.
I showered today.
Let
That's
me
an
tell you the
accomplishment.
Let me tell you the flavor of existential crisis that I'm having this week. Are you in? Let me tell you what keeps me up at night. I have a friend and and now I can call her a friend. The first time we met, I don't know her at all. We're at this big social function. There's lots of people there and and everyone's doing the small talk. She comes right up to me, looks me in the eyes, and she's like, what are the first 3 things that you think about when you wake up? And I go, dun, 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 and I listed them and they were honest.
Yeah.
And she's like, I like you. And I was
She's
like,
so
and I was like,
amazing.
did I pass? Like,
You passed the
because
friend test.
she's like, no, you answered the question. Most people are like, weirdo or whatever. And I was like, oh no, I'm in. But also, like, I don't want to
that.
scare you away with the three things I think about, because one of them I think was my current flavor of existential crisis. So, I think it's okay
You
to sort
answer.
of
Yeah.
jump in a little
Yeah.
bit. I think though too, and I'd love to ask you about this with your experience as a coach, helping women at a vulnerable time.
Yeah.
I have found that you get to be a certain age, you get to be like middle age, and you've been burned by some friends. You've lost a lot of friends. And sometimes friendships have changed through nobody's fault. It's just, what happens in life.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's somebody's fault. I'm not, whatever.
Yeah.
Because of a lot of things.
You evolve.
And yeah, and that is devastating when people that you thought would be there when you were able to look up
Yeah.
and they're not there. So that kind of changes it. How has that changed? Have you seen other women change with that?
Well, first off, I have experienced all of those things.
Yeah.
Friendship just changing, being betrayed, and then a friend not being a true I think that is a common human thing. And we can do one of two things. Either we can allow it to harm us and we shrink and diminish, or we can choose to let that actually be about the person that it's about instead of us. And we can grow and evolve and make sure that we're not that friend and allow them the grace, because probably they're dealing with their own stuff, and just move on and not become so wounded from that it holds us back from enjoying life and connecting with women who are true friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
Well said.
feel like that there's this feeling sometimes of like we really want to like, just be like tough or, to like take things on. But
Yeah.
like, I love this analogy that someone gave where like if you like close your hand in a fist, like it feels strong, but eventually you're going to lose all the blood flow in your hand and it's not going to work.
That's an
So-
amazing analogy.
Right. And
Yeah.
so like opening it up, like that first like part of opening it doesn't feel very great. It's a little bit painful, but then like, man, now you can use your hand and it's open and it's ready to receive. And I think like, logically, I know like there is nothing that will serve me by closing off, by, putting up walls. Even if someone takes advantage of me or betrays me or pulls the wool over my eyes, that really like all that means is they're really like they're betraying themselves. They're pulling the wool over their eyes, right? And so if I can stay open, and sometimes I do go through that phase where I have to be like, oh, that's right, like open up, okay,
Yeah.
but like give ourselves grace and give others the chance to open themselves up when they're ready.
Yeah, that actually is one of the many themes in both of the books that I wrote this year, which are totally different. They're completely standalone. But yeah, because women are a community, we need each other.
We do.
And
We do. We
sometimes
can't
that
guys-
hurts.
Yeah.
I'll read your books, Heather.
When you think about maybe what you need as a friend, because especially like as Sophie's talking about, like she says I was fully consumed by being a full-time parent. Like that's revealing something, right, too, about
Yeah.
herself. I'm curious as to if you've ever found yourself in that position, how you've sort of found that balance, or maybe that even just like catalyst to like look outside a little bit. Has that been easy for you or hard or?
When it came for friendships, like I would put it on the calendar, set times. Sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on your schedule, is like calendar, have a girls' day, like mani-pedi, get them done together. If you have a restaurant you want to try with your friends, just like treat yourself day. Treat yourself day, and like if you want to have lively conversations, have a list of topics that you would like to discuss with your friends. Because friendships are all about like positivity and give and take, right? And so you want that experience to be positive with your friends. You don't want friendships to be draining.
An obligation.
Yeah, an obligation.
The
There's
obligatory.
power in like vulnerabilities in your friends, but it has to be like a two-way street, like anything, right?
And we often don't prioritize, right? We don't prioritize self-care, but I don't even think friendships is like a treat. It's like it's a necessity, right? It's
really
something that
is.
we need. And so if we're putting it on our on our planner, just the same as like we put a meeting on our planner, just the same as we put like I need to go get groceries this week. You can also put like no, and I need to go see a friend this week, because that is a necessity. That is something that we need.
Or calling a friend and saying like, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Thanks
can
for
see that
being
you're
there for me.
struggling. And
Yeah.
For me, because I'm coming out of that, right? You ladies have younger kids, and my kids don't need me anymore. That's why I did start a business, and I went back and got an education and all the things. I was in the trenches, and I wouldn't change it. I loved being completely immersed in momdom. And of course, yes, I'm making time so that I'm not running on fumes every day.
Right.
But I wouldn't have done it any different. And I think being honest with yourself and what works for you and what isn't working, and then move toward that. So there's nothing wrong with completely losing yourself, because I knew that it was a phase that I didn't want to miss. And so I was willing to lose myself because I knew I would eventually find myself again, different.
Yeah. And we're all different in how we handle that or process that.
Yeah, or what's best for each of us too.
Yeah,
Some
and our
women
kids.
that might not have been the best move for them.
Right.
Like everything is so individual. So just really being honest with what works for you.
And that's such an interesting point, because it is so individual for each of us, and our friends, like they're not going to be exactly like us too. They're going to make different choices, and I think that you can support them in different ways. Do
Yeah,
you
rather
know what I
than
mean?
judging,
Like,
oh, that mom works. Like,
well, no, yeah,
nothing
because I
wrong with
remember
that.
when I was fully immersed in like a stay-at-home mom, like I was able to do things that I couldn't do when I was working. And then when I was working, because I've done part-time, full-time, like I've been every kind of mom. And and how like my stay-at-home mom friends were able to help and provide something. And then my working mom friends were able to help. Like it was so, it's kind of like beautiful about that, about like how we shouldn't all be the same, but we don't have to apologize for what we choose in that moment. And a good friend will help you feel validated in that too. I have friends who are my age who should, by society's standards, have more time, but because of the specific needs and challenges of their children, probably will never be an empty nester, or will never, will always be in that intense phase and need different things. And it's something that that I won't experience, but our friendship can still be beneficial for us. And does that make sense? Like in a different way. And I think that's so interesting. And particularly, I think we seek out friends when we are going through something that maybe we didn't anticipate. So, for example, like I have friends who have, nonverbal autistic children. They need friends who know what that's like to be the mother. I don't know what that's like, and I can be a good friend, but they also need friends like that. When I lost my husband, I needed friends who were solo parenting, not just single parenting.
Yeah.
Just all of the sudden. And I had to go out and find friends, because I didn't have any who knew what that was like and knew how to talk to grieving children and parent grieving children. So I had to go I found new friends based on a specific set of criteria, which isn't something that I had necessarily ever done before.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful to have those friends now. So I don't think it's always like such a limited thing. I think sometimes it's okay to look outside,
Right.
Yeah.
of what you think of the kind of friend you'd look for in the third grade.
Right.
I know. Never in a million years I thought like one of my good friends would be a lawyer. I'm
Really?
like, yes.
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
it's good to have a lawyer in your
Oh,
back
yeah.
pocket.
Yeah,
And
we
be
all
like,
need
can
lawyer
you read
friends."
this contract and like translate it into English for me?
Seriously.
What is this legal verbiage they're talking about here? And so you find people in places and seasons of your life, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing to keep in mind is, just to be open to the possibilities of meeting new people
Yeah.
and meet them where they are too.
Yeah.
Especially as an adult.
Yeah, being really open-minded as to how friends can come to you. Maybe
Yeah.
it's the little old lady who also needs a friend, or
Yeah.
the
gosh, yes.
teenager Like so many,
Yeah.
my nieces and nephews, they need adults who aren't their parents because they don't want to listen to their parents. That's a different kind of friendship. Maybe not one where we're emotionally dumping on them like we would a peer, but
Yeah.
we can be friends with them and snap back and forth.
Totally.
I love
Yes.
snapping with like my friends' kids and my nieces and nephews. Like it just is
Yeah,
fun.
like, and it's like different ages,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Yeah, I you
They
know,
have the best stories. Like people who
so
are
juicy.
older,
Yes.
like
Yes.
the best stories.
you're like, say what, Yvonne?
Yeah. My nieces come over or old, like, yeah.
like
good
Tuesdays
stories.
with Maury. Do you guys remember
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Tuesdays
Oh, yeah.
with Maury. Find
Yes.
your Maury.
Look at that
out there.
friendship,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
We all need a Maury.
For sure. I remember that I made friends with this older woman in my neighborhood, and when I first met her, I was like, she's not friendly, and
I've had
I'm kind of scared of her, right? And I remember she said I was pregnant, and she came up to me. She had 8 boys. Can you believe that?
Oh.
She came up to me, and I am so puffy. Like, I'm not saying like I gain a lot of weight, which I do. I'm saying puffy too. Like puffy on top of a lot of gain. And I just look like everybody looks at me like, oh, how you doing? And I hated it, but like I did it.
Yeah.
So I'm waddling around the neighborhood just trying to exist. And she came up to me and she goes, I enjoyed every second I was pregnant. And I was like, and I said right through, I go, well, either A, you're lying, or B, you don't remember.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to let her have that.
Yeah.
I was like, no, not on my watch. And I remember she was kind of like, well, I did. And we, fast forward, have become best friends.
And has she fessed up to the
No,
truth of
she
that
loved it.
situation?
That was
Oh.
her experience. But I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. But we were just able to, like, we're honest with each other. We're able to tell. I'll never forget her because after my husband passed away, it was soon after her husband passed away. But, she's a lot older than me. And she came over. Oh, it's going to make me cry. And she was like, you must be so mad. You can punch me as hard as you want. If you ever need anybody to punch, you can punch me. And I was like, that's the nicest thing that anyone's ever said to me. You know what I mean?
She was offering you what she
but
needed.
she wasn't
Yeah.
being funny or anything. She was being
Yeah.
real. Like,
Yeah.
I am so mad for you. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how would I
Yeah.
have ever predicted that? I would never have thought that. You can find friends in strange places.
People surprise you, man.
People surprise you. Give them a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can surprise them. We had just moved, and my third was just born, and she was the worst baby,
Mhm.
and a high risk pregnancy. So I was coming off this really emotional pregnancy,
Mhm.
and then I had a baby that wouldn't sleep. She didn't sleep until like she was 3 or 4.
Ugh.
But I was having such a hard time. It was right before Christmas, and I just thought, who needs a friend more than I do? And then I just went and I was their friend,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is a nice way to also make friends. Like, just look around. Who needs it worse than I do?
Mhm.
And I'm going to
Right.
call
That's
them and
a
have
good
lunch with
thing.
them or take them
Mhm.
dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of the Council of Moms are like people that I've seen online that I think, how are we ever going to get together? Can we just be friends? Well, maybe if I invite them to come and be on Council of Moms, they'll be my friend. So you could also have your own show
Yeah.
and be
True.
like,
Put in
you
the
want to
work.
come on my show? Let's be best friends.
Start a podcast. I
Yeah,
have amazing
do it.
women through my podcast. It's true.
I'm not kidding. Well, and back in the olden days, as your grandmother from Gen X, we used to. I met a lot of like the coolest people through blogging,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which doesn't exist. But like we would follow each other's blogs. They were well crafted personal essays because that's what Gen X did, and they'd have funny references and stuff, and you'd be like, oh, that girl's cool. I mean, that's my best friend I found. I was like, I need to be friends with her.
Yeah.
And clickety clack.
Right?
Email. I mean, there's so many different ways, but I do think that all of the things that we talked about require like a lot of vulnerability, and you just like
Right.
showing up as who you are.
Like, I promise I'm not a weirdo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
for every story
Like,
about
I
a
know
successful
you.
friend that I've made, I could tell you a story about somebody who's like, oh my gosh, back away. And that's okay.
It's
Not for
okay.
everyone. That's okay too.
Yeah. Showing yourself really allows people to know if there's a genuine connection or not.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can hide in your bed and pull the covers up and feel embarrassed about the offering that you've made, later. But in the moment, just get past that a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is
Either
hard.
way, you're going to feel some angst and rejection.
Always.
So just do the scary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're
just
gonna hide
move
in your
on
bed
to the
later.
next.
Yeah.
There's plenty of friends out there.
I wonder too of in this question too, it also talked about like creating your own like council of moms or, council of friends, like where the people that you go to that like can help you with the specifics of your situation. You might not share all of the details of your business with everybody, but you would with that, group of friends. And we are wrapping up our time, but just in the last time, I'd love just to get each one of your perspective of like your best advice for really like finding your true like people that you can go to for anything.
I mean, you don't know till you try it, right? Like I think there's definitely been like lots of events in my life that are like sensitive and I'm still working through them, and I'm such a verbal processor, and so I talk with everyone. Like you say, maybe you don't share your business with everyone. I think I do. I think I do share my business with everyone. But it's for me just like, like you just learn as you go. And sometimes I'm going to say something to someone who maybe well-meaningly just is giving advice that I don't need right now. It's not helpful for me. Maybe it's even like brushing on stuff that like I'm sensitive about or doesn't make me feel great, but they meant it totally well-intentioned. I just know in the future, okay, I want to keep like this friendship as something where like we are going to have the best time talking about these things. But I know that like this person maybe like doesn't always want to have fun and they always want to talk about like the sensitive things. You know what? Like I've got multiple friends. So like there are going to be friends where I'm like, I'm going to share everything with them and we can have a good time. But you rarely find like the person that just like lines up exactly for you. And I think that's why like we're meant to learn from so many people. And I don't know, I learn as I go. And that does mean sometimes that I'm like, oh, I need to sort through what just happened because I don't know if I feel great. I don't know if I said something that made them feel not great, but then just be open about that too, right? I can be open to someone and be like, hey, like, I'm actually kind of wanting to sort through that right now. And let's talk about this. Here's the thing. If they want to be your friend, then they understand. And you're both talking to listen, not to, not to make a point or not to, once you reach that level, then you can kind of be open of every phase of journey that you're on with that person.
Great advice.
I like friends around food. I just love food. I'm like, you're my brunch friend. You're my sushi friend.
Oh, I like
and you're my
this.
steak friend.
I love that.
This is amazing.
That is so fun. And
I
kind of
love
in the same
that.
vein.
Yeah.
Well, my thought is completely different, but just to be able to love and self-accept so much that it's easy to be vulnerable because rejection doesn't hurt as bad. And you can just be like, okay, well, that wasn't a good match. And next.
Yeah. And it doesn't cost as
Yeah, because
whole
you know that
identity.
you're completely wonderful and lovable and that, connection is
well,
out
you
there.
guys are all completely wonderful and lovable. Thanks for being on this council, for being vulnerable to make those connections.